How's it going, guys? Aaron from PhoneDog.com here, and if you really think back to the legacy of the Nexus devices, back all the way to the Nexus 1, well, it's not really all the way because there's only 2 Nexuses, but anyway, there was always the hope that it would come to several carriers. You know, we hoped we'd see a Verizon Nexus 1, a Sprint Nexus 1, T-Mobile and AT&T as well, and it launched on T-Mobile followed by AT&T, and then it didn't really pan out for Sprint and Verizon. We always wanted to see it on several carriers. I think that was the dream of Google's, but it didn't sell well, so they shuttered the web store and sold it through some different channels. Well, now it's finally available, at least the Nexus S is, on a CDMA carrier. Here it is, the Nexus S 4G, available from Sprint now for $199.99, and it's a completely stock Android experience, but the benefit of it over the T-Mobile version is that it has 4G. So it is running WiMAX, in addition to Android 2.3, that 1 gigahertz processor, 5 megapixel camera, front-facing camera for video calling, and it is running Android 2.3.4, so later version of Gingerbread. You can do that video chat via Google Talk. So a lot of cool features on this device. Sprint's first completely stock Android device, but the question is it the best one to have when the Evo 3D is right around the corner and some other hot Android devices are either out or on their way out? We're going to find out that and more in the full review, but first, special thanks to our friends at Best Buy because they're hooking us up with some high-end stuff that we give to you in the One Paw Bandit game, things like the Thunderbolt, the Sidekick 4G, maybe even some of these, and you can win them. So when you go to Best Buy Mobile, you don't have to deal with rebates. You're going to walk out working. They're going to help you set stuff up, your email, your web, and you're going to get a good deal to boot. But enough of that, let's get into the review. Google Nexus S 4G, is this the best Android phone to have on Sprint? The best one to get, period? We're going to figure it out. After a long time of waiting, a Nexus device has finally come to a CDMA carrier in the United States. Here it is, the Nexus S 4G, made by Samsung, branded by Google, and it's available on Sprint now for $199.99. I'm sure you can find it cheaper through some third-party retailers as well. But specs-wise, it's unchanged, mostly from the T-Mobile version. 1 gigahertz Hummingbird processor, 4-inch Super AMOLED display, 5 megapixel camera on the back with a flash, and then your front-facing camera as well, and it's running a stock build of Android 2.3. Now, a couple of differences on this one as opposed to the T-Mobile version. We'll go to About Phone so you can see Android version 2.3.4. So you do get that Google Chat functionality out of the box where you can use it kind of like you can on tablets with Honeycomb, where you can connect and use the video chat portion of Google Talk or G Talk using the front-facing camera. So that's one big benefit. The second one is obviously it's running 4G. So it is WiMAX capable. You can take advantage of Sprint's 4G network, and it joins the lineup of devices like the Evo Shift 4G, the Evo 4G, the Epic 4G, and more. So adding to Sprint's already pretty diverse lineup of 4G devices, but design-wise, I believe it's 0.3 millimeters thicker, if I remember right. But otherwise, you know, almost exactly the same. You have your volume rocker over here on the left side, micro USB charging port on the bottom with your 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. You have a power button over here, and then nothing up top. Like I said, you have your camera on the back. So it looks exactly the same, and then you can see your battery here, 1500 milliamp battery in this device, and it's interesting because, you know, obviously it worked pretty well in the T-Mobile version, but we'll get into battery stuff a little bit later. But it was interesting to see how it changed, not only with this being a CDMA device, but also having WiMAX capabilities. It was interesting to kind of see how quickly the battery life drained on this device. So it's running Android 2.3, like I said, 4-inch Super AMOLED display, by the way. I think I already said that, but just to recover it. Running Android 2.3, so it's running Gingerbread. That was my John Q impersonation. Gingerbread! Gingerbread! Anyway, it's running Gingerbread. I'm not going to start that again because remember with Froyo, a lot of people were like, why is he talking like that? But running a stock build of Android 2.3, and I've installed some applications. But you get a lot of Google stuff out of the box like you did with the Nexus S on T-Mobile, or the AWS version, like books, browser, downloads, typical Google stuff. I've installed some apps on this, but you'll see things like latitude, navigation, Google Talk. Now, other than that, it's pretty clean. You know, you don't get Google Earth. Now, the downside is if you want to go in here and uninstall these, you can. I mean, they're stock Google apps. They're not a big deal, but if you want to free up some space, we'll go into Applications and Manage Applications. For example, we'll go to All, and let's go to Earth, and you see you can't uninstall it. So, you know, if you're not using Earth, it's kind of cool. You know, it's nice and it's nice to have, but you can't uninstall it. So if you have no use to or no use for it, it's kind of frustrating. You can obviously download non-Android market apps. You can sideload applications, which is very cool. And other than that, you know, you just see some minor changes. Obviously, it's running showing Sprint because it is running on the Sprint network. So some minor changes there, but otherwise, design-wise, OS-wise, it's exactly the same as the Nexus S, but it's on Sprint. So let's take a look just real quick. Let's dive into this and take a look at messaging. Show you some of the different keyboards that come pre-installed on this. And you'll notice that when I click on this and do input method, it's only one out of the box, the Android keyboard. No swipe pre-installed. Again, this is a complete Google experience device. So, full immersion into Google stuff, no swipe, no, bloatware from Sprint, anything like that. You are relegated to the Android keyboard. Now, it is the Gingerbread keyboard. I happen to be a big fan of the Gingerbread keyboard. If you remember back to my Nexus S review, I didn't like it that much. But it grew on me after using it. Now, it's funny because I've been using these 4.3-inch displays like the Galaxy S2 and 4.5 like the Infuse, and I've been using this keyboard to try and go back to the 4-inch. It's a little bit, it's been a little bit of a challenge, but let's try the Quick Brown Fox is ready to party it up this weekend. Quick Brown Fox is ready to party it up this weekend. So you can see it's just a little bit harder to type on. And little personal kind of funny story that wasn't funny at the time, but it's funny now. The fact that they put the emoticon face right beside the period often screws up, or screws my ellipses up. When I'm doing ... it actually adds a smiley face at the end, or I'll mistype it and it'll be ... smiley face. And oftentimes, ellipses are not really used in funny situations if you really think about it. It's kind of like this thought-provoking thing. So I wrote this thought-provoking thing to somebody and ended it with a smiley face, and they kind of wrote back and were like, what? That's not funny. But just personal experience, kind of random. But you can use it in portrait, you can use it in landscape as well, and I think I turned off landscape. So let's go back here and take a look. Let me turn it back on rather. Auto rotate screen. Messaging, and then you can see what it looks like in landscape mode. Now, it is a 4-inch display, and I've often argued in all of the videos that that didn't make sense. I've often argued in all of the videos. You get the idea. The 4 inches is a nice balance between 4.3 and 3.7. It's large enough to where people with bigger fingers like me, or president of the Fat Finger Club, can type on it with relative ease, but it's not huge like the Infuse 4G or something like that, where it's just too big for a lot of people. So that's it's a nice balance, and it's thin to boot, and it has that typical Samsung hump at the bottom. So it is a contoured display, which was kind of new to the Nexus. When the Nexus S came out, it was kind of new to us, and now we're seeing other devices like the HTC Sensation and some more have these contoured displays. So it seems to be something that might be catching on, but you can really see the curve actually at the angle I'm holding it right now. Not anything huge. When you're holding it up like this, you don't really notice it, but you can definitely see it from the side. Now, image quality, even though this is not a Super AMOLED Plus display, image quality has been pretty impressive. I mean, you look at this and the blacks are incredibly black. And if you notice, like we'll go to menu, for example, you can see that the actual menu itself is black. Now, because this is a Super AMOLED display, obviously it works with darker colors better. Lighter colors kill the battery faster. So if you'll notice, all the menus are black and white, with a little bit of white rather, not much. And you can see this is all black. It's all done to preserve battery life. So something to keep in mind. So back from messaging, back to the home screen, you can see it's a stock Android experience here with 5 home screens, and you can access the individual home screens by pressing and holding these dots, which correspond to what screen you're actually on. So we can see all 5 here. Go to a blank one, for example, and we'll hold it down. Now you can see shortcut widgets, folders, and wallpaper. Click on widget. It's all stock Google widgets. You'll see analog clock, calendar, a couple things I've installed, but calendar, Facebook, Google Voice, music, news and weather, and then the semi clock, which I've installed, and I'm actually really a big fan of, which I'll show you. We'll save that. I think it's a pretty cool little widget. I think it works out. I think it looks nice on this device. So wallpaper exactly the same as well. You're not seeing a huge difference here. Let's just do this one, for example, and then we'll change it around. So you can see that widget that I use for the clock. I think it's pretty nice. And since this isn't obviously HTC Sense or the newer version of TouchWiz 4.0, it doesn't really have a good clock widget, so it's nice to have that up there. But anyway, wallpaper is about the same. Stock Android widgets, not a lot to report there. You'll see Twitter, things that I've installed, but the rest are stock Google widgets. Web browsing. Let's take a look at that and pop into the browser again. Stock Android experience. So the browser experience is going to be as pure Google as it gets. So let's go to phonedog.com. Click go, and wait for it to load up here. Now, like I said, 4 inches. This little keyboard. Trying to get back used to it again. You see, I might make some mistakes. Again, it's a smaller display. Even though 4 inches is that nice sweet spot, after you've worked with something like 4.3 or 4.5, it's a little bit smaller. So it'll be interesting. If you're coming from a device with either a larger display, maybe an Evo 4G, or something with a smaller display like the Evo Shift. Be interesting to see. I'd love to hear from you on like my Twitter feed or Facebook or something like that. See how you get used to, or I'd like to see If you get used to the keyboard, in a couple days, or it takes you a couple weeks, let me know. So we're loading up here, and it's loading on 3G because cell service is not great in my home office. So we'll load this and wait for PhoneDog to load up. We'll take a look at the browser. Again, stock experience here. You pop into Windows. There's no animation like you remember from TouchWiz 4.0 or HTC Sense. I open up a second window, for example, to Google, click Windows, and it just shows the individual pages that are open, nothing else besides that. So we'll jump in here, Google, and you can see Google's there, and then we'll go back to PhoneDog and see if it's loaded. It's loading up. It's taking its sweet time, though. That's the one thing. We'll cover this a little bit more. Sprint's 4G is pretty decent, but you drop to 3G, and the speeds, at least where I'm at, are absolutely terrible, which we'll do some speed tests and I'll show you. But to spoil it a little bit for you, I was averaging about 150 to 200 kilobits per second on the download. So needless to say, pretty slow. So see PhoneDog starting to load up here. And even though it's loading, pinch to zoom responsiveness is very, very fast. Load it up here and bring up the top so you can see. That's given the fact that it's loading, there's flash advertisements that are going to be running in just a second. That's pretty speedy performance. See how quickly that's loading up. You see it highlighted some of the text as well. So actually, I'm going to jump back to one more thing while that's loading that I forgot to cover in messaging. We can go over here and we can select a word, we can select all, or let's say party. Let's go to party here. And we're going to select that word. And then we have our copy-paste functionality. And you'll notice the orange tones here. It's changed from kind of a green or some of the other colors that Android devices of the past have used. It's orange and gingerbread, so you can see. You can move those little cursors, highlight text, and then I can copy. It's a little bit easier to do, and it's nice to see that they've enhanced copy and paste because it is something that I didn't think I would use on a regular basis until I started going all touchscreen. So let's activate the Wi-Fi because this is taking too long. Activating Wi-Fi. Turning on. Pull it away here so I can get my network up for you. And bam. Okay. Let's get Wi-Fi on and running. There we go. Okay, so you can see a little bit slower, but still pretty responsive. No checkerboarding, which is a nice thing. You can see the flash advertisements are kind of taking their toll a little bit, but still that's relatively fast for me. For casual browsing, that's pretty good in my book. Again, no checkerboarding, and you can see scroll up and down pretty easily across. A little bit of a lag, but again, it's still loading, so something to keep in mind there. So I don't want to spend too much time into that, even though it's not loading. You can see what it looks like in portrait and in landscape mode as well. We can scroll down here to some text. Let's go down to that, for example. And scroll up, or scroll in rather, and you can see even at max scroll in, it's very easy to read and very clear. Then we can scroll back out. And just a clean picture. Looks great. The colors look great. I've been really impressed with the browser performance so far.